Hey there, this is Chris Sev here. I have been doing a couple of these recent Tailwind videos where we go around the web and we find something and we rebuild it in a CodePen with Tailwind. I really like these sorts of series, so I thought, you know what, let's continue. Here we have the Stripe homepage with Tailwind. There's a video on the channel about that. We have this cool grid background for that secret project I'm working on. We have an animated scrolling list that we saw on the Laravel jobs website. I was browsing the websites, as one does, and came across this pricing page from docker.com for their pricing page. And to be honest, I don't really do too much Docker work, and I don't think it's the prettiest of pricing tables by any means, but I think it might be fun to rebuild it and see how it goes. So with that said, let's go into a brand new CodePen, go into CSS settings, add in our Tailwind CSS spreadsheet, style sheet, save and close. And we are going to hide CSS and JavaScript. We don't need those. We're doing it all in the HTML section here. So what I want to do is we are going to do this header section. And then let's do the background. You see this like gray/white diagonal here. Let's do that. And then what I want to do is just build out one of these and we'll style it. And then what you do from there is you just copy and paste a couple times and now you have all four, right? So we'll do that, and that's kind of our outline for today. So I'll start pricing and subscriptions. Choose a plan that's right for you. I'm going to copy this because I know I won't remember it. So I'm going to start here. We are not going to do our normal min height screen, justify center, align items center, because I think the content will be tall enough that we won't need that trick. So we're going to go with, let's go for the H2, and it's going to be pricing and subscriptions. And right next to that, we're going to do an H3, and this one's going to say that. Choose the plan that's right for you. All right, so that's going to be it for our headlines. There we go. Okay, now we get to the pricing boxes. And ideally, what you would do here is you would either do a flex box where you would have 4 divs and they would sit side by side. And let me show you what that looks like, actually. I'm going to say flex. So we're going to do div times 4, and then each one is going to have its own number, and I'll press tab to autocomplete that. So since that is div times 4 right there, all of those are going to sit side by side with that flex box. So that is one way to do it. You could go onto each one of these and say class is flex1, and it would kind of take up 25% of the overall container. So that's one way to do it. The other way to do it is grid. And you say grid columns is 4, and then you kind of just get rid of all of these because each one is going to, by default, take up 1 column of the grid. As far as which strategy to take, I personally have been really liking grid more lately, and I have a video on Tailwind grid classes if you want to check that out. But the reason I like grid is because you just define 2 classes on the parent, and all of these are going to fill in the corresponding space. So I think it's easier because you're just styling out the parent div. To each their own. All right, so let's do this right here. We're going to go class is going to be text maybe 5XL. Let's go for font is extra bold. Let's go for text is maybe black. And I'm going to wrap both of these in a div because I want to do a class is text center on them. And then margin bottom of maybe 12. But you'll notice that everything is kind of bunched up to the top of this and to the left of this. So let's wrap everything in a div. Class is going to be padding of maybe 10. And then I'm going to do that same exact thing at the bottom here, because this is kind of a section that you might see in a website, and you could even go more semantic and call it a section itself. This H3, let's go for class is text maybe 3XL. And we want this to not pop as much as the header. So let's go and do 2XL, a little smaller. Font is bold. And let's go for text is gray at 700. Maybe that's even a little too dark. Let's go for 5. Cool. Now we want a little bit of spacing between these two. You could either do a margin bottom on the H2. The way I kind of prefer to do it is space Y of maybe 3. I really like the idea of putting classes on the parent element so that each child element is only responsible for styling itself, and the parent element is responsible for spacing and moving things around. And that's just my personal preference. Okay, so we have the headlines done. We have the pricing boxes kind of stubbed out. Let's work on that background that we see here, this black and gray, sorry, not black, this gray diagonal. So there's a couple different ways to do it. We could do this as make the entire background gray and then give it a white, absolutely positioned item. Or you could do a white background and then do a gray, absolutely positioned item. So let's try out the gray way because by default it's white background. So that means we're writing less classes. So I'm going to say this is relative. And then we're going to say gray diagonal thingy. And you got to love my comments. Most other developers that work with me, not their favorites, but it's all good. Class, let's go for absolutely positioned. Height is going to be full, so you can do height full, or the way I like to do it, inset y is 0. So that's saying top is 0 and bottom is 0. Now you can either say width. Let's do width is full, but let's do inset x is 0. So it's left is 0 and right is 0 of that element. But it won't show because there's no background gray at 300. There we go. So it looks like this thing isn't really taking the full height. I wonder why. Oh, I see why. Because the content of this hero section right here, this pricing section, is not the full height of our viewport. So this, by default, will only be the height of the content. So I can actually do this as inset 0. Because that's shorthand for top, right, left, and bottom is 0. Background gray, I think that's a little too dark. 100 should be good. And I know we said we aren't going to do it earlier, but let's do min height is screen. At least until we can get the content to fill up our screen. Okay, so this is absolutely positioned right there. The headlines and the pricing boxes are below this new gray absolutely positioned item. So I'm going to set both of these to relative, and that should bring them above the other one. There we go. Now the thing here to make this a diagonal, you go transform, and we're going to skew y as 12 maybe. And that went the wrong way. So let's go negative skew y is 12. And that didn't do the full amount. Let me see what else Tailwind has as far as skew classes. Skew 12 is there. Skew 1. So it doesn't look like any of those are going to be large enough. Let's see. Maybe we say the width of our div right here, instead of being the full width, let's do for inset y is 0. And then let's go for width is 1/2. Okay, so that's it. And then we have to say go to the right. Okay, so that's there. It doesn't look like that's enough. I'm wondering if the Tailwind classes by themselves can do it. An interesting way that we could also approach this, and I hope it's okay that I'm just messing around and kind of showing you different techniques on how to do this. We could do transform and we could do rotate at 45. So that rotates it there, but notice how it's not going to be tall enough. So what you can do is say width is maybe, let's see what the width classes are. Tailwind width classes, let's go there. Do any of them go over 100%? It doesn't look like it, so we may need to do a little custom CSS. Let's try and avoid that. Let's do width is full. Width is full. Okay, so that's that. Inset y, right 0. We have that. Let's do a translate x at maybe 48. So kind of push it over. Not really getting the job done. But another thing you can do instead of the translate is you could say right, so negative right 48. And that should be able to do the trick as well. But maybe we increase that to like 72. And it's getting closer, but notice that this actually goes over the content. So we're going to have to go up here and say overflow is hidden. But now we're getting to a territory where overflow hidden could intersect and kind of override some other things that you have going on where it could be bad news. But the other thing you can do here is kind of get the width to be more than full, maybe an inline style. Style is equal to width is maybe 300% like that, and then drop this width as full. And it went the wrong way. So maybe negative rotate 45. Okay. I don't know which way to go. All right. Well, that's kind of playing around with the background. Let's get on to the pricing tables because I know that's kind of what you probably came here for. So we'll leave that as is. And let's go down to the pricing tables. Let me go take a look again. It looks like we have a card sort of layout. There's a shadow on it. There's a border top on it. There's free. There's a label. There's a sub label. And then there's a list. So let's get that going. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to say class is background white. Let's go for padding of maybe 5. Let's go for shadow. And that should be good. Okay, and now what I'm noticing is that there isn't a space between this. So let's say gap is 4. So there's a little gap now between each column. All right, so we have that. Let's start working on the interior. So we need the pricing header. Pricing list. So we'll do that. We'll do that. And then let's do an H2 here. And we'll say free. And then the sub under that, let's do an H3. And what did they say here? For everybody. Okay. All right. I'm not the biggest fan of doing all caps in the markup itself for everybody. So a way you can do that is saying class is uppercase. And on this, let's go for class is, I kind of want that thin sort of font thin. All right, that'll do the trick. Let's go for font is thin. It seemed like that's what they did on the Docker site. Text maybe 5XL. And then down here, let's go for a smaller text, text small. And I want to hide these because we're running out of room on this cramped screen. Okay, so let's add in a little bit more padding here. Padding 10. And why isn't this taking the whole width of this container? Let's see. Oh, it's still grid columns 4, but there's only 2. So no matter what, it's only going to be 25%. Let's go grid columns 2 for now. Get a little more room. Okay. Let's do a div here. Class is going to be margin bottom of 10. Let's go for space Y of 2. Okay, free for everybody. I know my coloring is off, so let's fix that. For everybody, this seems to be like a dark blue, which makes sense. They're Docker. And then let's do a light gray. So let's go back to this. Font thin. Let's go for text is blue at maybe 900. It seemed like it was that dark. And this is going to be text gray at 400. Okay. Now we need a border on the top of this. So let's go border, top border, blue at 300. Border top is not thick enough. Let's go for border top 2. Still not enough. Border top 4. And then beyond that is 8. I think that'll get the job done. So we have free for everybody. I want to drop the padding here. Let's go down to 8. Okay. Now we are on the pricing list. So let's do div right here, div. And I think we can get away with this. It is a bunch of list items. So let's do that. But actually, it might be easier to not do the list items so that we can just style the icons ourselves. Let's see what they did. They did the list item, so let's do that. It makes sense. It's a list item, right? So let's go here. We're going to say ul li times 2, and we're just going to put random data here. Okay, and by default, Tailwind does not put the bullets in place, which is really nice for our case because we don't want the bullets in place. So I'll say class space Y of 4. Let's go for text large. Let's go for text gray at maybe 500. And let's see if that matches what Docker did. No, it's a little darker and a little smaller, it feels like. So let's try that. Text gray 500. So let's go up to 600 and let's keep the text as the base. And we'll drop, no, too high. We'll drop it to space Y of 2. Okay. And then in each of these, we need an icon. So I'm going to go to hero icons, and I have a video on hero icons. And let's search for check. I'll copy the SVG for this. We'll go over here, and 1 and 2, paste, press enter. And then I'm going to go here, and we can say class. Width is maybe 6, height is 6, text is green at maybe 300. And then these should be in line. There we go. Okay, so we have that. I kind of want to increase the space Y on that. There we go. Okay, so there's that. We have those 1, 2, 3, 4. We don't really need to leave those in. I think 2 is enough to kind of demonstrate the point. So here's pricing list. And then down here, we are going to have pricing numbers. And then down here, we are going to have the call to action button. All right, let's look. We have $0 per month. I feel like that could be styled better, but that's okay. We'll leave it there, and we'll do the button. So pricing numbers, I'm going to do a div here. Let's go for class is margin top of maybe 10. It seemed like a lot. And then let's go here. And I'm going to do span 0, span per month. So the reason I split it into 2 different spans because I want to style them separately. So we can go class is equal to text 4XL. And text is black here. And then here, class is text, maybe, I like the base, but we can do text small maybe. And text gray at 500, 600. And while we're at it, I kind of want these to be a little darker. Text, where are we? Text gray 600. Let's go to 700. And I'll capitalize those. Okay, so that's looking pretty decent. Last part to it is call to action button. We can do a button here, button, or it's an A tag, depending on how your app is functioning. Class is margin top of maybe 5, and we're going to say padding Y of 4, padding X of 6. Width is full. Actually, let's do subscribe to free. Let's go for border is border 2. Oh, sorry. Let's go border is 2. And then let's say border is blue at, and we'll match that top border at the top. And that was 300. Is that right? Yep, 300. I kind of like it squared out like that. That's cool. So margin top, I want a little bit more. Actually, it's not the worst. Let me see if we can lower it. Maybe 3? Okay. But since Docker did round it out, let's round it out ourselves. I like it not rounded. And we'll say text is blue here at 300. That might be too light. Yeah, so let's up both of those to 400. And we will round out the corners. Yeah, I did like it without the rounded. All right, sorry, Docker. We're keeping it squared out. And we have the border, so we're going to say hover is background blue at 400, and then this is going to be hover text white. Cool. So that is going to be it for that pricing card. So the next steps would be to copy this, multiply it 4 times. So let's go ahead and do that. It's going to get a little messy in this code pen. Right here is box number 1. It's going to get a lot of messy in this code pen. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. And right now it's still grid columns 2. So we have to go up here and say grid columns. Where are you? 2. Let's go to 4. But notice how really, really tiny that is here. So you can say large is grid columns 4, medium is grid columns 2, and then on small is grid columns 1. So that's how we can make it responsive. So that is that. As we shrink 1 column, as we grow 2 to 4. All right, so the rest of it is to change out the HTML for each of these. I know it's kind of messy on the left, so I'm going to leave that to you. But overall, that's the strategy for building out the Docker pricing page. I know we went kind of a little bit weird with the background here. I don't mind that effect, though. I think it's fine. But I hope that was helpful. Please do check out the other things we've built in Tailwind. If you do want to build something else in Tailwind, let me know on twitter.com/Chris__Sev. Hit me up on Twitter. Share with me maybe an image of something you find on the web, and we'll build it in a video. I would love to do that. It's a lot of fun to do that. So please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.